Well, hello again, everybody. This is John Norris at Trading Perspectives. As always, we have our good friend Sam Clement. Sam, say hello.
John,
Hey, Sam. I hope you're doing well.
I am doing great today.
Well, I'm glad that you're doing great because a lot of people out there are very anxious about that dreaded T word. And by that, I mean tariffs.
And it's really ramped up I would say last week.
Last week, we know we've been talking about tariffs since the election.
2016.
Yeah, but since but it's really gotten ramped up, like you said.
And, the reaction seems to be similar to what happened the first go-round, and that's what I keep bringing up is, we know how this works.
Yes.
Nothing is different really so far. It's a negotiating thing. Things are on the table, then they're off the table, and they're on the table for one country and off the table for another. And so, but it's changing every day. It's changing, almost by the hour. We're getting stuff midday that is moving markets one way, and by the end of the day, getting something else that moves it back the other way. And so it's just kind of this roller coaster. And right now, I feel like you just have to hold your breath or grit your teeth or whatever phrase you want to use and just get through it.
Well, I got to tell you, when you take a look at everything, we've been through this before, and it didn't cause, to my estimation and my remembrance, this level of angst that it's currently causing. Particularly with the tariffs with Mexico and Canada. It seems to be causing a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unease. Investors have pulled the stock markets down well into the red ink the last couple of days in general. And I gotta think this is all this uncertainty, all this unease, all this freak out. Tariffs are a convenient scapegoat in this regard. I think that there's a lot of discomfort about the direction of the economy in any event. And so tariffs are just making what could be a bad situation a little bit worse.
Well, and we've talked about the expectation for volatility to just normalize, which means a pickup in volatility given the lack of it.
Last year there wasn't much of any.
Yeah, so
just put your money in the market and just watch it grow.
We talked about it this morning. If you took a week vacation when that whole Japanese yen carry trade, or what if that was even really the reason, but that sell-off, if you avoided that, you basically didn't have drawdowns, or at least it felt like that. And so saying a normalization of volatility is also saying a pickup in volatility compared to the last 12 months. And so maybe that's a part of it, just, people seeing what's happened over the last 12 months and getting a quicker trigger maybe. And, going back to the first round of tariffs or the first Trump administration tariffs, the volatility right now is around Canada and Mexico.
Yes.
The first go round, at least by my recollection, the almost bear market we had into 2018 was exclusively about China.
Yes.
And so that seems to be the difference. And, China's getting some additional tariffs. There's some exemptions right now. If you ship it directly to the consumer, you don't get tariffed. But so there's a lot that kind of remains to be seen on how this all shakes out. And again, it could have changed from the moment we started recording this. So Scheinbaum could have made a comment, or Trudeau, or Trump, or whoever that could have changed the direction or the anticipation of what's going to come.
Well, I think you bring up a very good point. I think what's kind of interesting about this is tariffs weren't as big a problem when we're dealing with the Chinese, right? We didn't feel quite as negative about it back then. Now, all of a sudden, we're dealing with the Canadians and the Mexicans, and these people share massive borders with them. Theoretically our friends or what have you. But, in truth, when you take a look at just how the world actually operates, are the playing fields really as level as, say, the American trade negotiator would want them to be?
Oh, probably not. But there's pros and cons to being in a position of authority and having the global reserve currency and things of this nature. And so, I'm not sure we necessarily want it or can get it to what some people would consider a level playing field. A level playing field is get rid of being the global reserve currency. So if we want that, there is trade-offs to that. And you have to have those trade-offs to have the global reserve currency.
Well, I think what makes this so distasteful for a lot of people is it's just America, using brute economic force. You're going to play by our rules, or else this is going to happen. And and our rules are subject to change at a moment's notice, and we'll let you know. Mm-hmm. And I guess it seems kind of maybe in some ways maybe a little bullyish. However, I think we've been really kind of unique in the fact that we haven't been a bigger bully in some of these situations. And while there are people throughout the remainder of the world going, "What are you talking about? You're plenty bully." But with this, it's just kind of like, telling Ottawa, we want you to do this, otherwise you're going to be slapped with this. Telling Mexico City, you're going to do this, or you're going to be slapped with this. And then watching the collective freak out. And it's not, if I were Canadian or Mexican, I'd just be furious about this. I mean, I really would be, because you're like going, I thought we were buddies.
Well, and you've seen that from Canada, some vocal political leaders on both sides of the aisle. I mean, Poilievre and the Conservative Party up there said that Trump and America stabbed their greatest ally in the back. And so you have this sentiment from, it's less about even the party of Justin Trudeau in Canada.
It looks as though Labor's making a comeback now, too.
Yeah, and so, but it seems less about even, hey, it's the liberal parties in Canada that really feel like they're getting screwed. It's like, no, it feels like most Canadians do.
Yeah.
And it's less of a political thing and more of a national thing.
Now, we have talked about the tariffs so much, just to clients. We had a webinar that our investment committee hosted today. I was on the television here locally recently talking about tariffs. Kind of surprised we hadn't done a podcast about tariffs, and I think you were too. And so when I take a look at this, and people have asked me specifically, what about the trade war with the Canadians and the Mexicans? And I say, listen, it's a trade war we can win,
right?
And it's not a fair fight. And the reason why I say that is because if you were to take the bulk of trade, imports and exports with Mexico, and just add them up, that's over 40% of overall Mexican gross domestic product, sheer nominal dollars based on IMF forecast for 2025. Over 40% of that country's economy is based on trade with the United States. You take a look at Canada's, and take a look at total imports, exports, total trade with Canada relative to the size of their economy. Again, IMF estimates nominal dollars, and it's like 35%. Mm-hmm. You add both of those countries together, add up all of our trade with both of those countries, divide it by the estimated, again, IMF nominal GDP for the United States for 2025, and the number comes up to be about 5%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how huge our economy is, and how reliant the Mexicans and the Canadians both are on trading with us, whereas trading with them is kind of like, yeah, it's important, but it's not a death knell scenario for us.
So it's really kind of like a game of chicken, and
Yes.
we're the much bigger chicken.
Yes. Yeah.
The curious thing, though, is
we're like a massive chicken, which doesn't sound right.
Yeah, but then you start, okay, then what about energy? And I think to the layperson, if you said, where do we get most of our energy from, they'd probably say the Middle East.
They'd probably say Saudi Arabia, which is completely untrue.
It's Canada.
It's Canada.
It's the majority of the oil that we consume.
That we import.
Yeah.
And it's and we don't get as much as I thought we did from Mexico.
No, the oil that we consume and process here is not the West Texas Intermediate.
No, it's not the light sweet stuff that we produce.
We ship that out.
We ship that over to the Middle East so they can refine it. We import the sludgy stuff from Alberta and Venezuela, and some from the Yucatan, and that's what we process here. And we do have some wells that produce that type of stuff. But that's right. Our biggest import from Canada by far is crude oil. Mm-hmm. Our biggest import from Mexico, kind of by far, are vehicles.
Yep.
And so complete different mixture of what we're importing and exporting, or importing from both of those two countries.
And then going back to the leaders of these countries, at the point of recording this, it feels like and seems like Sheinbaum is handling this a lot better than Trudeau is. And I don't even mean she is saying at least what Trump wants to hear, or at least getting him closer to that point. And so I'm not even saying whether it's right what she's doing, wrong, whether it's helpful or not. The point being that there seems to be more willingness to work between the Mexicans and us.
Well, it's and there does seem to be that way. Again, speaking as American, and from what I have read, Sheinbaum has done a much better job in talking with Trump, explaining the Mexican side of the situation. And to that end, I mean, today, Trump postponed the implementation of the tariffs until April 2nd. Conversely, Trudeau kind of came across like, well, if you're going to do that to us, we're going to do this to you. And kind of slapped a tit for tat on there, which I understand why he would do that. I get it. I get the knee-jerk reaction for that. However, it does seem like Sheinbaum is being a little bit more clever in dealing with Trump, to the point where even Trump complimented her.
Yeah,
which they have completely different worldviews, and Trump is saying, this is someone that I can deal with.
And we've seen this with CEOs and how they talk to Trump and how they portray things. And talking about the Mexicans putting soldiers on the border, this was something that was already done years ago. In 2021, I believe, in the Biden administration, putting 10,000 or whatever the number was on the border. Tim Cook did this, saying we're going to invest $500 billion into America. Well, then you look at what they're talking about. That included most of the stuff they were already doing and just their normal day-to-day operations. And so you gotta, the way Trump works, it seems like you have to, it may be something you're already doing.
It's deal making, saving face, making him look good, moving on to the next deal.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't seem like this Apple $500 billion is, one, necessarily happening, and two,
it's going to happen anyhow. It's not an additional $500
correct.
billion.
They're not saying, hey, we're going to build $500 billion worth of new facilities and new employees.
This $500 billion we were already going to spend.
This is a company that's a sixth of their entire market cap. They're not doing that in new spending over the next couple of years.
No.
So, but that's my point, is the good leaders, it seems like, know how to negotiate with him, or at least give him what he says he wants or thinks he wants, or again, it doesn't have to actually necessarily happen.
Yeah, well, good. I agree with you on that. Now, what do you think the likely impact will be or could be should April 2nd come along and we end up having these tariffs? One, how long do you think they will last? And two, what does that mean for the U.S. consumer?
Well, it probably means higher prices. I mean, I think that's kind of a slam dunk. There's going to be portions that I think companies are going to try and not pass it on.
But is it going to be that doomsday scenario that so many people were talking about?
No, but it also comes at a pretty inopportune time.
I think that's key there. I don't think it's going to be that my niece over in Atlanta, who I adore, was talking. She was being hyperbolic, and she said, "What happens when avocados get to $20 a piece?"
Well, I hope you're not buying it.
I said, don't buy them. And so,
but we talked about,
but people were freaking out about that type of stuff. There's no one's holding a gun to your head. You don't have to pay these higher prices if you don't want to. There are going to be U.S. alternatives for a lot of this stuff. Prices will go up a little bit, or at least businesses will try to pass along as much as they can. And more than likely, consumer gets stuck with some, the importer gets stuck with some, the producing company gets stuck with, everyone gets stuck with a little piece of it, to where it's diluted and it's not quite as painful. The U.S. consumer is not going to eat all 25% of it, if you catch my drift. I can't envision that happening, because it makes the assumption that all goods are inelastic and all that stuff, and that's completely not the point. I don't also think that it's going to last a very long period of time, due to what I just mentioned about Mexico and Canada's significant reliance on trade with the United States. They simply can't wait us out.
Well, it'll undoubtedly cause a recession in those countries.
A very severe one.
If it's something that continues on.
Yes.
And so that's that game of chicken. Even with us importing crude from Canada largely, we can win this if this is something that we want to do. But going back to coming at a bad time, we talked last week about it, how
U.S. consumer is already weak enough.
The lower end consumer is really struggling. And I sent you an article in the Wall Street Journal about even the company that produces the great value brands is seeing slower demand.
How?
And that's the point. It's like the people that are consuming that are not high-end consumers.
No. So they must not be eating at all.
Yeah, they're shifting out of even like the and it's not just for Walmart, but the store brand versions for a lot of companies.
That's truly having less food in the pantry.
Yes.
That's if you were opting out of great value, you were opting out.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of scary, isn't it?
It is a little scary, and so So you're already saying, hey, I'm not going to get as much of this. It's the lower end version. It's the non-name brand.
Yeah.
Now you start tacking on additional price increases to it. It's a pretty bad time for that.
Well, I will tell you this, that even if these tariffs with the Canadians and the Mexicans, and to a lesser degree the Chinese, and I don't think the Chinese will have much of an impact on prices here in the United States, and I'll tell you why. I just think that the Chinese government will end up eating most of those because a lot of state-owned businesses
They'll just weaken their currency like they did last time.
Yeah, and that's fine. They'll do that, and we won't be any worse for wear and all that stuff. I think that's probable case scenario there. I will tell you that even if prices do go up, I don't think that average American voter, that person who voted for Trump in November, is going to blame Donald Trump for it. And I'll tell you why. Because he can position it like these people haven't been trading fairly with us, and it's now time that we can level the playing field with them. Whether or not that's accurate or not, that's going to be the message. And there are enough people out there, and we talked about it last week with the U.S. consumer, lower-end U.S. consumer, who feel as though the whole system is unfair against them. That if you have a president who is standing up, or at least saying that they're standing up for fairness for the American consumer, they will back him to the end of the earth.
Well, and we've talked about how many Americans don't even have exposure to the stock market. So there's a lot of overlap between people who aren't exposed to the market and people who have felt like they've been unfairly treated.
Yes, and so when you take a look at the number of people that feel as though they've been unfairly treated, if this is something that Donald Trump can do to make things fair again for the average American worker or what have you, they're going to support him on that, even if it's short-term pain. But even before it gets any sort of short-term pain, what we have already seen are U.S. wholesalers front-end loading a lot of their purchases.
Yep.
And so we had a massive spike in wholesale inventories in the month of January, an all-time high in terms of trade deficit in January, which was coming off of a massive trade deficit in December. And we will also likely see a massive trade deficit in February, which will ultimately drive down the first quarter gross domestic product equation. So you're already seeing a lot of wholesalers, stock up in anticipation for these tariffs impacting, prices, their prices. And if the tariffs don't eventually come to pass, all that inventory has to be sold off. And what could be pretty interesting is, in order to avoid the higher costs associated with tariffs, a lot of these wholesalers might have to be getting rid of some of these products at fire sale prices.
Yep.
Which could be relatively interesting.
Will be interesting.
Yeah, it could be real interesting. All right. Well, guys, thank you all so much for listening. We always love to hear from you all. So if you have any comments or questions, please, by all means, drop us a line at tradingperspectives@oakworth.com, where you can leave us a review on the podcast outlet of your choice. If you're interested in reading more, hearing more of what we got to say or what we think, you can always go to oakworth.com, OAKWORTH.com. Take a look underneath the Thought Leadership tab and find links to all kinds of exciting information, including links to our previous episodes of Trading Perspectives, links to our weekly newsletter/blog, Common Sense, links to our quarterly analysis and magazine called Macro and Market, as well as links to good pieces that our financial advisory services folks put out, headed up by Mac Frazier. All right, with that being said, Sam, anything else today about tariffs and their impact on the American consumer?
We'll just see what happens.
Indeed, we will. All right, and that's all I've got today, too. Kind of screwed me up there. See, I'm sorry about that. Y'all take care.